Hello, brothers. Let me ask you, do you want to carry your team? You want to have the most kills, fewest deaths? You want to be an actual asset on the field to your team? Hey, I'm going to break down some of my best combat tips that I've learned after now I'm pushing 40 hours into the game. So stuff that I've just sort of picked up along the way that's really helped me be more successful, especially in higher tier difficulty activities. So I've got 6 main combat tips today that we're going to break down. We're going to start out with the very first one, and that is simply don't run away. Okay, don't run away from fights. Killing is healing, right? So in this game, running away is actually going to get you in a lot of trouble. If you actually want to stay alive, you need to stay in the heat of combat. So part of staying alive in the heat of combat means knowing what queues up things like critical strikes and finishers. So there are lots of ways to get health on the battlefield. In fact, in a lot of this gameplay, I'm going to be right in the thick of it. I'll be completely surrounded by enemies, but staying alive nonetheless. The first thing you need to know is that finishers and critical gun strikes launch an animation. And during that animation, you are completely invulnerable to incoming damage. So obviously, you want to be doing parries, gun strikes, and finishers as often as possible. These are all going to regenerate armor energy for you, while also making you immune for a few seconds. So if you want to stay alive, you really need to learn how to queue up those special animations. So let's hit them one at a time. Dodging an attack in the perfect dodge window will queue up a critical gun strike. So, dodge often when you're surrounded. Dodging also helps you lunge in a specific direction quickly if you need to jump to a major enemy quickly and maybe finish them off. So dodge liberally and know that sometimes you're just going to get a perfect dodge because some tiny enemy you weren't even paying attention to was trying to hit you when you did that dodge, and you'll get a free critical gun strike. You'll see the notification, the red target, that'll pop up on your screen, so snap your camera to it, click the trigger, boom, it takes care of business for you. This also works on bosses, by the way, so note this fight here. Most people stay far away from the tyrant, but I like to stand right in front of him and get easy, perfect dodges and chain critical gun strikes for critical damage on him while also keeping my armor topped off. Now let's chat about finishers. It's important to know your melee weapons combos. For example, I know that the chain sword can do a light attack followed by a heavy attack that will do a kick in the chest that is especially effective against majors. It stun locks them. So you'll see me use this combo a lot against majors, where I'll go slice kick, slice kick, slice kick, finisher. So he's stun locked during that whole time, and I get a free armor charge back at the end of it. And during the finisher animation, I can spin my camera around and locate my next target, figure out what my next move is going to be. So all this to say, hey, never run away from combat if you're hurt. Running won't heal you. You don't regenerate armor charges until you're out of combat for nearly a minute, so it will not help you at all. If you want to stay alive, you need to use dodges, parries, and executions to keep your health replenishing on the fly. And definitely break boxes so you can get free extra armor charges before every engagement. Tip number 2, priority targets. It's embarrassing how long it took me to learn this, but the top middle of your screen will always tell you what the highest tiered enemy on the field is. So if it says Minoris, that means tiny little guys, minors, nothing else right now. If it says Majoris, that's your bigger enemies, the medium-sized ones, your majors. And if it says Extremis, hey, these are the unique enemies like your Lictors and Terminators and things like that. So whenever an enemy spawns that raises the threat level, there's going to be an audio cue to let you know that. So you'll eventually just get used to spinning around and looking around as soon as you hear that audio cue. But just pay attention to what the text at the top middle of the screen says. It's going to let you know what's on the battlefield. But this is especially helpful for when you're playing with other players. Like I heard the spawn sound today.
Grab your grenades.
It saw nothing near me, and that's when I realized, I spun around and I saw that it has spawned on the guy in the back who was, like a room behind us. Now I could run back to help him out. So definitely keep an eye out on the current priority threat. That'll help you know you should be prioritizing. If it says Minoris, hey, that's a great time to perform quest objectives like interacting with consoles and things of the like. Tip number 3, parry any physical attack. Yeah. So this is something that I've seen a lot of people overlook. They're only parrying the blue attacks. And that's a good thing to do for sure. But you can actually parry any physical attack at all that isn't marked by an orange circle. and the parry command overrides melee animations, so just push it when the time is right and your Astartes will respond accordingly. This is a great way to queue up gun strikes for armor charges in the heat of combat. It's also a good way to save on ammo because gun strikes don't actually cost any ammunition. Next tip, use environmental hazards. So this is one of the most easily overlooked aspects of combat in the game, honestly. But learning how to use environmental hazards to your advantage could genuinely save your life and help you rack up lots of extra kills easily. There are red barrels, blue plasma containers, and more. Note here that these two major enemies spawned right beside a blue plasma bundle, and just one bullet to the plasma bundle, and now both of them are immediately flashing red and finishable. There are lots of times where a mob will spawn right next to a hazard, and just one bullet could delete the entire mob for you. You may not feel like it's necessary on minimal threat operations, but once you start escalating the difficulty, this is going to be a genuine game changer for you. Tip number 5, know your class's gameplay loop. This is important. So, the Vanguard, for example, takes less melee damage, has longer parry and dodge windows, can refuse death only to melee, it can grapple the enemies calling for help, can recharge grenades on multi-kills, etc. So, bulwarks, you can walk down ranged attackers and provide physical cover for allies. You can help capture objectives with your banner. Snipers can eliminate extremist enemies and enemies calling for help from a distance. Assault can delete entire mobs with flying hammer strikes for ad clearing potential. You just need to look at the perk trees for your class, and it will become apparent what you're supposed to be doing. For example, I main Vanguard, and the perks are all like, hey, you take way less melee damage, but you take more ranged damage. And doing perfect parries and perfect dodges reduces incoming damage. And your parry and dodge windows are longer. And also your melee attacks do extra damage to major enemies. Well, it's like, okay, obviously I am meant to grapple in and stay in melee range and focus down the majors for my team. And that's exactly what I do. So play to your class's strengths, or you will actually be a detriment to yourself and to your team. And finally, tip number 6, hey, use those grenades, man. I've learned to rely heavily on grenades in this game. So I save my crack grenades to take down big guys like majors and bosses. The crack grenades, they home in on targets, so you don't have to worry about being too accurate. Just toss it in their direction, it'll do big damage to big targets. Frags are for trash mobs, shot grenades are for area denial, and melt-a-bombs are just freaking hilariously strong. You only get one at a time, but they can be devastating. They can destroy anything from trash mobs to bosses. It's just a higher risk item because you have to get close, drop it, and then get back and detonate it. But if you get used to it, you can do some pretty disgusting things with melt-a-bombs. Well, I hope these tips have been helpful for you. I know that the combat in this game can feel a little daunting. There are some times where you just feel overwhelmed, you're getting mugged, and you don't know what to do. So hopefully this will simplify things for you, make the game seem a little bit more approachable, and I can promise you that with time, a lot of the things like reacting to dodge cues and parry cues, it just gets a lot more natural for you. You'll get into a good rhythm, you'll start to learn your combos, and you don't have to sit there and actively think about what you should be doing. It'll just sort of come naturally to you. So let me know in the comments section if you have any other combat tips of your own. And let me know if this video was helpful by leaving a like on it, as it's the best free way to support the content right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching the video today. Courage and honor, brothers, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.